What's something that society generally accepts as normal, but when you think about it, is actually very strange? Story 1, honestly, when you think about how most foods must have been discovered, it's remarkable how we were able to eat anything. Take olives, for example. Raw, they're extremely bitter and almost completely inedible, yet someone was like, you know what this needs? To be soaked in brine for days first. I mean, how many things did that guy put in brine first before he landed on olives or bread? It was discovered in Egypt in 800 BC because they were brewing beer. The yeast from the beer was left out, and in the heat rose and created sourdough. But for that to happen, we're talking leaving this paste out for days. And someone's saying, yeah, they'll eat that. Story 2, when parents and grandparents meet a long-term significant other and start saying, give me grandchildren, it's basically saying have lots of with my child. Just weird to me. Story 3, imagine if circumcision never existed and was first proposed today, how many men would be signing up? How many parents would be doing it to their newborn sons? They'd think it was crazy. Story 4, beach attire. Everyone at the beach is essentially hanging out in their underwear, some wearing less publicly than what they'd normally wear, hidden away under clothes for the sake of decency. As long as there's sand and water, it's totally cool to walk around in brightly colored undies. Story 5, that our most comfortable clothing is not socially acceptable to wear out on a daily basis. Literally, the only thing that is keeping us as a group from pajama-level comfort at work and school daily is groupthink, that it signals laziness and lack of self-respect. Story 6, spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars on a wedding dress that will only be worn once, while the groom rents a tuxedo and returns it after the wedding. Why the difference? Story 7, sleep. Oh man, I have done so many things that I need to stop doing things, stay still, and let my brain turn off all non-essential parts until I feel like doing things again. Story 8, the garter ceremony of any wedding. Like here, let me remove this band signifying your virginity with my teeth. Meanwhile, your grandfather cheers on in the background. Story 9, ID, say, drinking alcohol. Consuming a substance that lowers inhibitions and has such potential for damage. An addiction seems to go against our self-preservation instincts. Story 10, up until now I was alone, but buffets like Golden Corral, the amount of bacteria and germs exchanged in these places has always appalled me, but I think a few more people care now. Story 11, drinking milk from other animals, eating the fermented for of that milk, yogurt eating, that when it goes off, cheese eating, that when it's covered in mold, blue cheese. Yeah, we eat moldy, gone off, fermented cow udder excretion. It's really strange when you think about it. Story 12, if you hurt an alien species and they used a device to portray a simulation of them killing each other for their entertainment, you would think they're crazy, yet we play shooter video games all the time for fun. Story 13, showers. They're like our own personal little rainfalls we can turn on whenever we deem necessary, and there are miles and miles of piping to run every single shower. It just weirds me out. Story 14, funerals that include viewing of the dead, especially those who were very ill, etc. Lordy, she had lost so much weight. He just don't look all that natural to me. Look how good she looks, and I swear I heard the accident tore her all up. Some funerals that do not include the viewing, they say it's grief that makes people act strange. ID lay odds that it's more likely to be greed. Story 15, sending money using paper checks. I know before the internet it may have been practical, but businesses expect me to just send a physical piece of paper that has my full bank account, routing number, along with my full name and address, all in unencrypted plain text through the mail. There's literally no security on checks. It's insane, and I hope the acceptability of using them wanes as new generations grow up. Story 16, how many people would make a religion? If today, 13-year-old girl gave birth to Messiah, claiming that its father is the God, how many people would actually be okay with that? People would, of course, assume that the whole "this is God's children" thing is a result of trauma fear of informing the public about the man behind this, some kind of Stockholm syndrome or mental illness, etc. Edit, a typo. Story 17, Christian communion. If eating your Lord's body and drinking his blood was done in the woods, it would be witchcraft. Edit, I get that it's symbolic, but it's still odd. Story 18, I knew this guy in the military who was Nigerian. We're at this training exercise in the middle of nowhere. The facilities are like an open picnic spot, a male barracks, a female barracks, and showers in the middle, but it's all outside and separated. We're having a meeting in the guys' barracks because for some reason it's okay for the females to come in there and not vice versa. Because Army, dude walks in from the showers with a towel in his hand and nothing but boxers on. And we all freak out like, dude, you can't just walk in here in underwear in front of all these females. And he looks at us confused, but it's just like shorts, but, I mean, yeah, but. Story 19, table manners. Other than chewing with your mouth closed, None of the supposedly polite things to do at the dinner table make any sense to me. No elbows, proper cutlery placement, not wearing a hat. How did those things become considered indecent? Story 20, oh, that's just part of their culture as an excuse for parents that think it's acceptable to completely cut their offspring out of the family when they do what they want. Story 21, open casket funerals. Pretty much you, your family, and your friends go to a centralized location to sit in chairs. Look at a box that contains the body of your loved one. I get that it might help people to say goodbye one last time and help with their grief, but it's still really weird when you think about it. You don't really know how to act. Are you supposed to cry, reconnect with relatives you barely see? Are you supposed to just remain quiet and just stare at your dead loved one? Personally, I don't want to have a funeral. I could care less what happens to my body, dig a hole, and throw my body into the ground for all I care. I don't want people to remember me as a cold, stiff, dead corpse. Instead, I want to have a living funeral. I want to be there to joke around with everyone and reminisce on the good, old days. I want people to remember me laughing and with a smile on my face. Story 22, raves, just being there with strangers, no talking, listening to very strange, repetitive music in a very dark room, and weirdest of all, dancing like crazy together. Dancing is weird anyway if you think about it. Story 23, the somewhat recent revival of mob justice, now mostly online and not in the streets, has not only been normalized but praised. A lot of people nowadays seem to think it's totally fine to take matters into your own hands to try and bring about justice, invoking often anonymous mobs of people to dogpile others online and try to ruin their lives, as if that has ever been healthy for humanity or righted any wrongs. Story 24, there's this overriding mood in the zeitgeist that abusing substances chronically is fun, cool, down to earth. It makes you an accessible, chill person. The reality is, people who use substances regularly to change their internal mood are deeply anxious, and completely the opposite of the image that is portrayed by chronic users. And yet, if you're not a user of mood-altering substances, alcohol included, you're generally looked at as a weirdo. Story 25, that we dress, talk to, and treat babies differently because of what their genitals look like, and get really upset if A, their parents refuse to play along, or B, the babies grow up and decide not to play along with the category we said they should fit in. Story 26, hopping in a machine powered by exploding gasoline a foot or so away from your crotch that demands all of your attention to operate it, only to bring it to the closest Burger King for some of those one nuggets that were definitely extruded out of chickens, but it's breaded and it's cheap, so you throw the shiz into some barbecue sauce and don't think about it. Story 27, marriage. You love someone so much that you legally bind yourself to them, and then have a witness watch you sign a document for the government that confirms you will be together until you die. The bride's father then gives away his daughter, and she takes your family name. What in the actual? Story 28, embalming. I hear it's big in America. In fact, the entire American funeral system from the POV of a European, they pump a dead body filled with chemicals and take out all the organs and fill it up with some material. So it looks plump. I think that's how it works. At least it makes no sense the Egyptians did it, because they believed that the soul needed to recognize the body to pass on to the afterlife, which is also why they left the heart in the body, as they believed it was the soul. But they also build huge golden pyramids to their dead. We just make holes in the ground unless you're Lenin or want to have a mausoleum made in your honor. There's no reason to embalm yourself or your family. You spend way too much money on what? You're going to bury them in the ground. They're supposed to decompose, leaving behind bones. Embalming someone only to bury them 6 foot under is like buying a Lamborghini and then driving it into a sinkhole on purpose. Now, I heard embalming doesn't completely stop decomposition, but slows it down. Sure, all right, I guess it depends on how hard you go and not well versed in dead people, but why don't you just bury the person like the next day? Give some time for family to come, but don't stick grandma around the house like she's still alive. Also, not putting pictures of the people on a grave. On one hand, it is very creepy to have the faces of dead people looking at you, especially when it's other people. But on the other, it's kind of cool to see how your ancestors look like in 1654. But graveyards do freak me out, man, especially in shows and movies where there's no clear barrier where the grave is. So you have a dude talking to his mom or something, and him just sitting there like, is he standing on her grave? To sum it up, the American funeral system. Story 29, marriage. At least of the traditional monogamous, exclusive sort, I love you. I think you love me too. So please would you agree to only love me? And only have with me, I mean literally until we die. I know emotions aren't fixed, and we can't know the future, but I'd like you to promise you'll love me forever. You'll promise the same. Yes, even if our circumstances change better, poorer, sickness, health, and even if I become lazy or stupid or disrespectful to a point. I know this may seem like an insane level of commitment to our unknowable future selves, and that the whole idea is contrary to many things we say about love, that we don't have to prove it to other people, that it shouldn't involve the state or the law, that if you love something, set it free. But see, right now, I don't want to run the risk you'll meet someone you prefer, or at least if you do, and you leave me, then I want an excuse to feel really, really self-righteous and angry about it, because ITLL mean you broke your promise. Yes, I know about half of such long-term, no-take-backseat arrangements end in divorce, most often bitterly, and at least a fair proportion of the others must be loveless shams. Therefore, there's an extremely high probability that we'll both regret this forever and look back on this proposal as one of the worst mistakes of both our lives. But right now, and at least for the next 6 months or so, I'm locked in a chemical infatuation with you, or we've basically been doing this for a few years now. And probably neither of us can immediately find anyone else, and I at least have already become emotionally or habitually dependent on you already. Therefore, let's make a legally binding agreement that we both know our unknowable future emotional states forever. Will you marry me? Story 30 concerts. Imagine if birds did that, like a single chirping in front of thousands of other birds repeating the exact same melody, or all the birds in the crowd going apeshit for this one single that chirps that one super catchy chirp that all the birds can't stop chirping. It blows my mind that we humans created the concept of celebrity. Just one person, let's make sure almost every other person knows they exist. It's so bizarre to think we sleep next to hundreds of other people at night, but we are separated by walls. Like my neighbor, who I haven't said a word to in 3 years, rests her head a few meters from mine every single night, and I have zero clue who she is or anything about her in her life. Story 31, shitty customer service at government-run facilities. It's like we all have to go to the DMV or the post office, so we've just accepted it's going to, but we're still the customer. Can you imagine if the next restaurant you want to treated you like the DMV does? Story 32, only eating certain foods at certain times. Why is it considered weird to eat steak for breakfast and cereal for dinner? It's not like our taste buds are physically altered by the time of day. If anything, drinking orange juice in the morning should be looked down upon, seeing as how repulsive it tastes after brushing your teeth. Story 33, we're grossed out by breast milk, but want to think about drinking cow or goat milk. Human milk is the best milk for humans, at least when in infancy. Story 34, injuring, humiliating. I live in country where post-Soviets behavior is still alive because of older generation, and it's normal to call kids in schools dumb or not good enough. It's normal when parent-teacher says, why you did it worse than your classmates. Are you stupid? Why can't you get it? It sucks. But everyone who's older than 40 thinks it's normal. ITS not. They just don't want to understand. Their behavior is ill. It's atrocious. The fact adults make kids believe that each winter a fat grandpa sneaks into their house on the 25th of December in the middle of the night and leaves presents for them if they were generally good that year. It's kind of weird to think about the concept. Story 35, eating embryos of other animals is perfectly fine. That guy who discovered vegetables, he dug up some plant and ate the roots. Watching other people getting hurt or enjoying themselves is exiting because others said so. Story 36, singing happy birthday. WTF? We just all gather around this person who's aged a year. We all stare at them and smile like we're in a cult. And then we sing this random repetitive song that we all know. IT is so weird. The fact that they then blow out some fire on a sweet treat and we all clap just blows my mind. Story 37, curse words aren't socially acceptable in a lot of places. They're just words, but people deem them unfit for regular conversation under certain circumstances. Really strange to me. Story 38, we're conceived and born without our consent, forced to receive an education, and then expected to get a job and fend for ourselves for the rest of our lives. WTF? We never volunteered for this. Having a society where we're all required to work our whole lives or be out on the street is super weird. Story 39, buying pets. I'm not a vegetarian vegan, but I do believe animals should be treated well. It's silly to me that humans buy animals to be pets. In fact, it makes less sense to me than people buying animals, cows, chickens, and so on to grow up for food. If I were to ever get a large pet, it'd be from shelter or rescue, or whatever they're called. These are living creatures, and it's odd to me that there are prices on them. Story 40, superfluous in TV shows. Unless it's plot important like in The Terminator, why show it when you can never show the full experience on TV? Is it supposed to be arousing? If so, why wouldn't I just watch? Story 41, thinking that when you die, you'll magically go to some black void called nothingness. Oddly enough, any other magical places you might go to are just absurd fairy tales according to Reddit. Story 42, think absolute nothing about being 100 in control of a 1-ton chunk of metal moving at 70 miles per hour, dodging other people that are doing the same thing. It's about the most dangerous activity any of us ever do, yet we worry about terrorism or our plane crashing. Story 43, I come from a religious family, and I used to be very faithful and active. But then they mentioned one day, while we were reading scriptures, that our religion used to require skinning the tip of a man's penis because it was deemed religious, and then they told me that people still do that today in our religion. And then my stepdad said if I were a guy, and if I was just child, he would have done it to me. But that genital mutilation, it's painful, and honestly, I think it's just awful to do to a newborn. Story 44, the fact that planes just fly around doing their thing. When you think about the fact that they're metal boxes held up by air, it sounds unbelievable, but the physics of it, etc., of course, make perfect sense. Story 45, how women have to shave their legs and underarms. It's so ingrained in me that seeing a woman with either is kind of jarring and unattractive, but it shouldn't be that way. Things like this drive me crazy when I think about it. Even though I'm aware of the fact it's odd, it's still something that deeply in my character. It not being mandatory seems odd in itself. I really hate society's standards. Story 46, women want to get married, but the man is supposed to purpose. What kind of Jedi mindfuckery is that? We have to buy the ring, make the proposal memorable, get down on one knee, and ask, while the entire time it's the woman who actually wants and pushes marriage. Story 47, I mean, if you think about it, you drink water, pee water, and other stuffs, then pee in a bowl, press a button, more water, takes it away, and suddenly it's clean. Then you use more water to wash your hands, and the water used to clean the water, put in a tank of water, then transported by a water carrier. Weird. Story 48, the Krampusumzug. It's nuts. People take their children to parades where other people dressed up as demons go crazy and whip the spectators with sticks. I was scared shitless as a child. TBH, I still am. Story 49, blessing someone after they sneeze. Does anyone really believe they're at risk of their soul escaping because they sneezed and require a blessing? It's weird because it's so ingrained in people that it's considered rude not to bless someone after they sneeze. Story 50, I hate being that guy. But enslaving animals to slaughter and eat them, I don't judge other people for their dietary choices. Eating meat is just an easier and more convenient way to live your life. But commercial farming is just an odd thing to me. Story 51, if you receive a present and you don't use it, it's a personal insult to the person who gave it to you. This includes situations in which the present is a terribly made product, not the gift giver's fault. He tried. But it's a combination of the gift giver not having much knowledge of the gift giver, not doing research on whether the gift is actually good, the gift giver being cheap, or not able to spend a lot of money. My loved one wants a 300 item. That's way too expensive. Wait, there's a similar item that costs 20. I'm sure it's just as good, and I'm not going to do any research to confirm this. I'm also not going to look at reviews to see if similar item in the 100 range is a decent substitute. Story 52, eating dead animals and drinking the breast milk of another species as an adult. It was for survival at one point, but now we have a choice not to. People do not need to consume animal products to live healthily. Story 53, asking people when they're going to have kids or a family. Some people are infertile or gay or consider pets as family. Family isn't just being a parent, and it's kind of rude to ask such a personal question. I don't understand how people think that it's okay to ask something like that to someone you met like 4 minutes ago. Story 54, obsession with celebrities. If you think about it, it's real weird to freak out when meeting somebody who doesn't even know who you are, and PPL will follow celebs every little move and obsess over any little thing about them. Celebrities are just other humans that happen to be good at something people like watching. Also following and obsessing over celeb relationships. That is personal, but some people will kill to know if, say, Travis and Kylie are back together or not. LOL. Honestly, the more I think ABT, there's a lot of things. LOL. Story 55, wearing a tie and suit. It's ridiculous, really. Let me knot this piece of fabric that serves no purpose around my neck. OH, and why not also put on a jacket, though it's not even close to being cold out. Story 56, watching in relationships. Following specific stars or risk models on social media. I know having a healthy outlook on sexuality is essential, but when you think about it, it seems pretty cheaty. Story 57, having child actors play roles in movies where they're being assaulted, talking about having been or being made into some sort of icon. Basically the way the U.S. media represents children at all. Really? Story 58, the fact that it's normal in the U.S. for 18-year-olds to go and fight for their country in wars, but not normal for someone of the same age to drink a beer. You can die for us, but not get drunk. Makes no sense. Story 59, cosplay, selfies. wearing jerseys of your favorite athlete, watching reality TV, camping out in front of a movie theater to be first in line, camping out in front of Best Buy on Thanksgiving, all of it. Story 60 that democracy is worshipped in the political system, but not in the economic system. Why does our right to have influence on how our money and time is spent at the workplace? Story 61 wearing clothes. Who even thought of that? Not religious. So the Adam Eve story doesn't apply. I think all the time about how it would be like if being naked was the norm. Story 62 dress codes are bullshit. I do the exact same work in a comfy pair of shorts and t-shirt that I do in my stupid business casual. Only I'm not comfy. I do better work where I'm happy with my clothes ties. I mean, when did men start to think I need to impress someone today? Better hang an extra piece of cloth around my neck. It has no practical use, and these lil can be so expensive. I know it originated in a military uniform, but come on. Story 63, how there are different plugs and adapters for each country. Can't people just accept and use the same kind of plug because I have to get different kinds of adapter switches? Need a plug in something I got for Germany. When I visited their different adapter, can't we just resort to one adapter? Story 64 neckties. If you think about it, they're just as decorative and pointless as any other type of decorative scarf headwear that people care so much about getting banned, just because it's a different culture. Story 65, how so many things and products come with so much packaging. Some stores you buy a single item in its package, and they throw in another package for you to carry it 20 feet to your car. Like going to a gas station and buy a bottle of water, and then they throw it into a plastic bag, so you can carry it out to your car where you open up the bag and drink the water. This plastic bag and bottle will spend thousands of years as waste just so we could have a drink of water. But not just that, everything is packaged, all sorts of extra packaging. I know you need some for transport and whatnot, but it's excessive. It's so wasteful and weird when you think about it. Story 66 cheese. First you molest a mother cow to get her milk. Then you put some bits of intestine in there, so it separates in a liquid with chunks. Then take those chunks and wrap them in wax and leave them to sit until they go yellow and solid. And then you eat it, and it's delicious. Story 67, cutting down a pine tree to place inside your house and decorate. Then throwing it out to the curb to be packed into a garbage truck and buried in a landfill. Story 68, why the heck are the middle school cheerleading uniforms so skimpy? Same for high school. They are minors, and it doesn't follow the dress code. My opinion is if you don't want to follow dress code for the athletic uniforms, there should not be a dress code. Freaking hypocrites, and come on, middle school, what the heck? No one wants to see that. Eyes athletic directors suspiciously. Story 69, pets. Like what other species keeps other animals in their homes, I find it really strange. Even though I have 3, I look at them sometimes and think, why the are you in my house? Story 70, this is going to sound like I'm frigid, but hugging people when you first meet them. You'll note this is ridiculously common among ditzy and bitchy women. As a woman myself, when I hear, oh my God, hi babe, and get a hug, it rubs me the wrong way. I now do it automatically just due to social norms and experience. When a friend introduces me to someone and I can read the body language that it's becoming a hug, fine, but I don't know you, I don't want to hug you, I don't feel the physical contact urge with strangers. After I've had a great evening and am happy to know you, awesome, big hug, but I don't want to hug someone who turns out to be a huge or I don't know at all. Story 71, baby ear piercings. Why does a baby need earrings? They routinely spit up on themselves, they look like potatoes, and yet they gotta have fancy diamonds in their ears. Do babies even appreciate jewelry? I just don't know. Story 72, circumcision. The fact that one of the first things we do to baby boys when they're born is cut off part of their dicks for seemingly no reason is insane. I know PPL say it has hygiene benefits. So, does washing your penis, and you don't have to cut part of it off, and the whole, well, I want is PP, to look my mind argument is stupid as well. Story 73, religious charities for the developing world. Nothing against the good they do, just the fact that some actively travel to less developed, in-need countries and only help those who are willing to accept the teachings of a religion. I know every faith has built-in clauses to share and perpetuate the faith, but that should not be a condition of offering your charity. Story 74, that it's okay to speak at a normal volume level on the subway, but the tiny amount of sound escaping my earbuds, which is many times quieter, is a huge problem. Story 75, believing that the events of a certain fictional book are not only true to real life, but somehow form the basis of morality and ethics. We have people out here going to conventions every week to talk about this book, going door to door, trying to convince people who don't give it that it's actually real, going on TV and in public to make references to it without an ounce of embarrassment, and using it to try to justify up laws and practices. Imagine if someone behaved this way towards an anime. You think they were psychotic or at least extremely cringe, yet somehow you get a free pass if that anime happens to be the Bible. In Germany, there's something called FKK Strand. It's basically a beach that you can run around on while being naked. I find this very strange in general. Story 76. There are some oddities in the perspective with which we see the world. The fact that we live at the bottom of a deep gravity well, on the surface of a gas-covered planet going around a nuclear fireball 90 million miles away, and think this to be normal is obviously some indication of how skewed our perspective tends to be. But we have done various things over intellectual history to slowly correct some of our misapprehensions. Story 77. We hurtle past each other going 60+ miles per hour and harm metallic objects that weigh a ton each. A life-altering tragedy if they ever touched, separated only by a line of paint. Story 78. Parents forcing children to apologize or an equivalent if they don't mean it. There's no point in doing it. All you're doing is teaching your kids that sincerity isn't important and escape the repercussions of your actions, which in the real world, it sort of isn't. This puts a barrier between self-accountability and the end of a sort of persecution. If you don't recognize something as your fault and then the punishment stops, you're going to assume there's nothing for you to fix. Nobody is perfect, and in a dispute, someone's in the wrong. This may not be true always, but that's a different discussion. Raising your kid by rewarding them with making amends without recognizing what they did wrong is the same as saying there's nothing for them to fix. In some cases, this may be correct, but oftentimes it isn't. And I would project it leads to stubborn, close-minded adults who don't know how to handle criticism or suggestions. Story 79. Private companies operate as ultra-oppressive fascist dictatorships. No one blinks an eye at spending over 1/3 of their waking life at places that sometimes go so far as to restrict personal movement and regulate feeding times and time slots for bodily functions. Story 80. Cars. You have a metal box with an engine making thousands of explosions every second, hurtling along at deadly speeds with a tank of highly flammable liquid feet from your. If someone invented it today, it wouldn't get past the drawing board. Story 81. The association with sexuality, with being dirty or immoral outside of, when it's being used to hurt someone like cheating, etc., or nudity in general being viewed the same. I get the hygienic aspect, but I don't think people, especially Americans, would bat an eye at that stuff if they weren't told to be ashamed of it to start with. Story 82. Strangers touching pregnant women's bellies without permission. It annoys the out of me. I swear when people do this to my fiancé in the future, I'll just stick my finger in their mouth.